We'll call the meeting, call to order the meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works for January 24th, 2022. Everyone is in attendance in council chambers. Jim Wheeler, myself, Dave Wilborn, City Engineer Bill Balke, Chief Pulvermacher is here, and via Zoom, Kim Lobdell and Michael Granetsky. I see no one here. Public appearances for non-agenda items. Everyone's here for an agenda. So next we'll move to the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the January 3rd, 2022 meeting minutes?
I so move we approve January 3rd meeting minutes.
Moved by Wilborn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Any questions, corrections? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next, agenda item 4, report of department head, Mr. Bill Balke.
Thank you. Just wanted to let everybody know that, we've been out there plowing snow for the past few days, and our staff is affected by COVID. So if it's not up to the same standards that we usually deliver on, I apologize for that, but we've been scrambling for the past few days. So COVID is going around our department, and anywhere from 3 to 5 staff are out per week over the past 3 weeks. So it's been taking its toll and going through and affecting people. But luckily, we've been fairly healthy with the pandemic and no serious health issues. But it is going through our department. So like I had mentioned, previously that. We might have some times where we're taking a little bit longer to get through neighborhoods, or we can only do so much during a day and then have to stop and come back. But just wanted to let you know that we're out there doing the best we can to keep our streets safe and the public going. So other than that, we've got a lot of development reviews and agreements coming through. So I'm working a lot of that angle. Let's see what else we got going on. Just our plant value that we're trying to get ready for February for an audit. Designs getting ready for bidding out this spring for resurfacing and the stormwater projects. So we're working on those contracts. It's just busy. Never seems to slow down for us, but we're working our way through it.
Thank you, Bill. Questions? Questions for Bill? Any update on our stormwater or neighborhood?
Yes.
Stormwater diversion. I'd like to give the Neatsels an update where we're at.
Yep. I had a full draft of the ordinance on my computer without saving it, and due to operator error, it is out there in Neverland, so it has to be recreated. I do have something that I will bring to the next Board of Public Works meeting. Okay. It's modeled after the city of Sheboygan. If you want to take a look at their ordinances for building codes and drainage, it will incorporate a lot of those standards. We'll have to get some buy-in from, of course, building inspection, because they would be the main enforcing body of this ordinance. But Public Works would have oversight on drainage as well. So, unfortunately, I was ready to go with that, but it got deleted.
Done it myself, Bill. I'd like to say I haven't, but all right. Anything else for Bill? Very good. Then we'll move on to our agenda items. The first is Resolution R 25521, adopting the City of Fitchburg Annex to Dane County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. I'm going to turn this over to Chief Pulvermacher to give us a rundown on what's included in this for people listening.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for giving me this time to address Dane County's mitigation plan. This is a natural hazard mitigation plan. And it's important to note that this is not a City of Fitchburg document as much as our contributions to the overall Dane County plan. It's also important to note what mitigation is, and it's any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to human life and property from a hazard event. So by addressing some of the things that have already gone on in Fitchburg, hopefully we can, sorry about that. Busy. Everybody's busy, right? So, so one of the things that is important to note is some of the things that have gone on in the city to be able to address actions that have already been taken and some of the things that we can show that we've made movement on. So a couple of things that really stand out in our audit is there's been a couple of natural hazard events that have caused significant damage, flooding events and tornado events. And of those, the work that's already been done is the fact that the city has created a plan, or at least placed in their budget the ability to create a sustainability plan. In addition to that, we've had some mitigation and fact-finding done on Lake Barney and Goose Lake. So the watersheds in that area have obviously had impact on flooding in the city, and there's already been work that has been done. And what that proves to the county and to FEMA eventually, in the event that we have more activity in the city, is that there is stuff that has already been reported. There is a trend, there's a history, and then if in the event that there's anything that's going to be done from a mitigation standpoint, they can maybe jump onto some of those tasks that are already in the works. So I guess I'll stop right here because of the fact that there may be more questions than answers, but I can probably point you in the right direction.
Okay. Questions for the chief?
Chief, with this plan, is there another plan for continuity of operations for the city?
So that's where we have to address mitigation versus response, and continuity of operations typically goes into response. So from mitigation, that's sort of our recovery aspect. After we've responded, we know what we have to do. Mitigation sort of either gets us back to where we need to be or prevents it from happening. So continuity of operation, although important, is not part of the mitigation plan.
I guess what I was asking, do we have one?
Yeah, so we have an semblance of a continuity of operation plan. That is done through emergency management, and what that does is it allows us to identify who needs to be in what positions and what needs to be put into place in the event that we have something that interrupts our ability to respond or provide service.
Okay.
And so we do have some of that in place. The unfortunate thing is with many emergencies, we don't have all of the variables that would affect us, and therefore there's a certain amount of thinking on our feet that we have to do, just knowing where our resources are and how we can use them.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any questions for the chief?
As part of this hazard mitigation, do you get into the depth of what, I guess, kind of the actuariality of these things happening over time versus what the actual cost is of an event?
Yeah, we try. With tornadoes, that's difficult. With flooding, we can trend out where we have been, and typically what's happened in order to contribute to it. As far as actuarial tables, there's none of that in here at present. But like I said, this isn't a City of Fitchburg document. This is a Dane County document. We're just contributing the data to it.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. But the plan we have here is the local jurisdiction data that's part of it. So do all the rest of the communities in Dane County, are they doing the same similar thing? And then is somebody from Dane County assembling it all together into one plan?
That's correct. And I can't go as far as saying that all communities in Dane County. I know that select communities who want to be active in this planning process are involved, but not all communities. And there is a central contact at Dane County that is basically collecting all this data and going to use it in one single mitigation plan for the county.
So are we online with the time frame that was in this document? Have we submitted this material December of 2021 to the Dane County Emergency Management yet?
Yeah, the initial submission was made, but then when we went to council, it was referred to the different groups. So Dane County is aware of the fact that it was referred out to different committees and commissions, and that was done with the intent of creating transparency and making sure that people knew that this plan existed and how they can provide input. And there is information in this plan as far as who you can contact from the county if you have any additional input that you feel is needed to be reported.
So will you get all of the data back from the other communities that are participating from Dane County? I mean, can we look at some of their information to see if somebody else has some ideas of something that, might be applicable to something Fitchburg might do?
Yeah, we have access to it through Dane County. Some of the ideas that have been put into place were done with the thought process of following suit with other mitigation plans and strategies that have been applied or at least reported in the past.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Chief, would, like on a tornado mitigation, would our siren system be our main contribution on that?
There's two potential solutions that we came up with. One would be the sirens. They're emergency notification sirens because they don't have to be limited to tornadoes.
Okay.
And right now, we're pretty well covered, and as development comes in, we address the tornado sirens with new development, but that's done through the county as well. And then the second thing would be tornado shelters, which we don't have a lot of, and you can use tornado shelters in like parks and maybe mobile home facilities, typically areas without basements but still require the shelter. We did not have anything on our books yet to identify tornado shelters, so it was hard to develop a strategy around something that we have not brought to city staff or put into our budget, even our distant 10 to 20-year budget.
Okay. Back kind of Jim's question, this is more the plan. So a tornado, I'm a Six Sigma planner and things like that. So is it set up? The tornado, you have to, after tornado, if it goes through, you have to get natural gas shut off first. The electricity, then water.
So yeah, and I'm a fault tree guy. So as that comes in, what we try to address is the things that could potentially go wrong, and then what our response to those things that do go wrong or we've seen go wrong. With electricity, usually it's shutting down of a grid. Yep. Because of the fact that you've got stuff down all over the place. So yeah, we do have response mechanisms in place, and we know what we need to do. It's a matter of the overall impact of the storm and the damage that it is created. And that's the variable that we won't know until it happens.
Thank you. Didn't mean to get you off the track here.
No, that's all right.
Any other questions? Then we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 225-21, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate your time. Next, Resolution R 0322, authorizing Dane County Services for stormwater permit review and inspection in 2022. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve
Moved by-
Resolution R0322.
Moved by Lobdell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Bill, I believe this is annual, this is an annual one that comes up, that we renew our inspection permit with the county every year?
Correct. We contract with them to perform design review of stormwater facilities and the inspection thereof to be in compliance with our stormwater ordinances. Approximately 60% of the cost is billed back directly back to developers, and 40% is a city cost for our city projects that we have inspection on.
I would just add, someone may ask, why don't our own staff perform this function? And do you want to address that?
Yeah, we have a staff capacity deficit where it's a very involved process to be able to go out and do the inspections, to do the reviews, make sure we get all the comments in as a full-time job. So during the past 4 to 5 years, we have been contracting that out in that capacity. And the city council has recently allowed for the hire of a part-time engineer. So we are planning to bring those back in-house again for the reviews. And we'll have to see about the inspection, as some of the duties that are currently being performed by the stormwater technician will be reallocated to other functions. So we may have that capacity to do it all back in-house again, but we'll see how that goes with this year coming up.
Thank you for that recap. I'm not opposed sometimes to a different set of eyes. Like the county with a different set of eyes than ours, and not. My preference would be this be internal, but again, a second set of eyes looking at this doesn't. I see the value in that sometimes also. Any other questions for Bill?
Well, more of a comment. Bill, you brought up about how we got more development, and basically it takes more staff in order to build that capacity to take care of things like this.
Correct.
And I don't want that to be lost on the public.
Yeah.
When we talk about development, that development does have a cost to it when we're approving projects. So more of a statement than anything else.
Thank you, Jim. It's just not extra revenue to the city. All right. Any other questions for Bill? Okay, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R-0322, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, Resolution R-0522, granting a private sanitary sewer easement to Capper Properties LLC within the Cannonball Trail Corridor. Do we have a motion to approve?
I so move we approve R-05-22.
Moved by Wilborn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. I think any of you that have went on Spoke and Sprocket, you saw that work that was going on in the last year. And this property, they're private, their sewer tied into this interceptor here. And it goes across the easement for Cannonball Trail. And so that's why they have to be granted a private easement here to get to the interceptor. Am I in the ballpark there, Bill?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have an interceptor sewer along the Cannonball Trail. It resides within the city of Fitchburg's area of that trail. It's split down the middle, city of Madison, city of Fitchburg. And this property was assumed to have their sanitary lateral tie into the sewer out front, but they actually went out the back into the interceptor. So the interceptor didn't even know it was there. And it had to get reconnected, and after that, we said, okay, we know where it is, let's put the easement on here.
Why did they change? This was a change that occurred with the replacement interceptor. Maybe you explained it. I just
Sure. No, the interceptor sewer was upsized to account for more sanitary flow coming through the area, backwater conditions and things like that. So the Madison Metropolitan Sewage District upsized the sanitary main through this area to accommodate that change in flow.
If any of you went by, I thought it was an impressive engineering feat to get this installed. I really wasn't quite sure what they were doing all the time, but they managed to get it installed. All right. Any other questions?
Well, Bill, Bill, was the connection always there? They didn't move it out the back just since this new one's Interceptor went in, did they?
No, it was always there, but they weren't aware of it. They didn't have the location located on the maps. So when they dug past it, they just didn't know it was there.
Okay. Do we anticipate, are there any more that we know of already?
We do not. We hope not, because their sewer would be backing up into into their buildings or
We should know about it.
flowing places that it's not supposed to go.
Going on the bike trail.
But
Yeah.
yeah, we are there is some investigation going on in those areas back there by Saris, just to make sure that they're going where we think they're going.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R-0522 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R-01-22. At this point, we're going to ask Kim to turn her camera and sound off and recuse herself here.
Done.
All right, thank you. So do we have a motion, Resolution R-01-22, authorizing Amendment 1 to the South Sain Road Reconstruction Design Services contract with K&L Engineering. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. So maybe we'll turn this over to, do you want to speak or?
I think Andrew is going to.
Andrew, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Andrew. So Andrew, we would like you to run down, what's included in this change order, why, and so I'll turn it over to you.
Yep, so I'll give the kind of overview, and then Sam, our consultant, will take it away. So the three main reasons are shown on the slide. The WISTAT safety funding, so that's the HISIP project up there in McCoy and Sain. We did get an amendment through council to include that, so that was $60K in engineering, and I believe $2 million in construction for that. But so that was so obviously that's adding different phasing, and so that's why there's some complexity in terms of the consulting contract. We also did a pretty extensive public and local engagement. A lot of kind of small neighborhood meetings, a lot of design changes, a lot of exhibits that came from that. And then some contract assumptions changed. So when we initially set up this contract, things like the OCR, Office of Commissioner of Railroads, railroad kind of coordination, all that stuff wasn't initially included, and it was kind of a bare bones, less public engagement contract. And so now including that in order for our consultant to engage with the railroad and get that process moving. So all that said, I can hand it over to Sam to kind of walk through the specifics, or if you want us to leave it there, we're happy to answer questions too.
Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. Sam, go for it.
Thanks, everyone. Samantha Herheim with KL Engineering. Just wanted to go over some of these details. There was a lot of information that we provided in the amendment itself in the packet. So all of the information I'm going to be going through is included in the packet. This is just sort of a boiled down summary. To start with, kind of the three main reasons that Andrew had highlighted were included in that December 6th letter that starts our amendment information. Like he mentioned, DOT safety funding was secured, approximately $2 million in funding to improve the intersection of Sain Road and McCoy Road. This funding will offset the city's overall cost to build the project. The funding is based on a realignment concept, which addresses the cause of vehicular accidents at the intersection. It also addresses potential for accidents at the trail crossing. And that's something that was a big issue that came through in the public engagement. That's something that people were really worried about and that they really wanted to see addressed. And this alignment also makes it eligible for this funding, so those are good things. The funding does have requirements. The design and construction does have to follow DOT requirements, which means a separate delivery from the rest of the project. And it does mean a delay to 2024 to meet the DOT delivery requirements and their program schedules. The second item that Andrew mentioned is the public and local engagement was extended. There was a series of meetings with the city staff and the project stakeholders. There were multiple decisions and resolutions that came out of this engagement that went through different series of boards and committees and were ultimately approved by the Fitchburg Council. The process took over 8 months that were not anticipated in the original contract and bidding schedule. And the schedule implications are that the Quick Trip is going to be opening in 2022, and the sunset on the TID, or the Tax Incremental District funding for the Lacey Road improvements, is in 2022. So that means it's really important that we get that segment from Aurora Avenue to East Sherrill Parkway constructed for 2022. It also means the section north of East Sherrill Parkway up to West Clayton Road will be delayed. That'll be a separate construction letting in 2024 that will align with the DOT-funded project, and this avoids 3 consecutive years of work on Sain Road. The third item that Andrew mentioned is that contract assumptions changed. When we were originally scoping the contract in the summer of 2020, there were budget constraints, and we had a very streamlined scope of deliverables. We were optimistic that omitted scope items would not be required, but ultimately they ended up being needed. Things like the OCR hearing with the railroad. And the previous council did support the streamlined design. So many of the items that were negotiated out of that original contract, like I said, ended up being required for delivery. And it also reflected the change in interest with the new board, new committee, and council members. Some of those things are spending time for cross-section and intersection evaluation and analysis, looking at utility undergrounding as part of that TID funding, applying for and delivering the Highway Safety Improvement Program project through the DOT, needing to go through the Office of the Commissioner of Railroads, that OCR hearing, and additional evaluation and some mitigation of flooding at impacted locations. So again, the addition of safety funding and the extension of the public and local engagement have created 3 separate phases of design and construction. And those phases are really kind of what we laid out in the amendment, although from the public's perspective, the phases will really be, the southern part will be built in 2022 with some work in 2023. The northern part will be 2024, although it will be 2 separate contractors. So here's a map of what I was talking about. Phase 1 will be from Aurora Avenue to just north of East Sherrill Parkway. Phase 2 will be just north of East Sherrill Parkway to West Clayton Road. And then phase 3 will be West Clayton Road to north of McCoy Road, and that's the DOT safety project. Although from the public's perspective, the limits shown in red will be built in 2022 and some in 2023. And the limits shown in yellow and blue will be built in 2024. So to give you an idea of the additional efforts for the changes in scope and other items, I wanted to give you an idea of just kind of a high-level summary of additional work. These are really the major efforts only. These are all described in attachments A and B of the amendment. But to give you an idea, you know, what we're talking about for that phase 1 area of the map, we're talking about for utility coordination, it would be undergrounding and an accelerated schedule for 2022 work. For the railroad coordination, it's the addition of that Office of the Commissioner of Railroads hearing, which is hearing material prep, hearing attendance, and work on the final agreement, and an extension of sidewalk at East Sherrill. There's some additional effort with coordination for a development with Limerick, which wasn't known at the time of contract scoping. And we did look at additional cross-section elements and are including some additional stormwater evaluation and flooding mitigation. For that phase 2 section, it's separate utility coordination, permitting, traffic staging plan and detour, plats, and basically planning for that section, since it will be a separate project to be bid and constructed. And for phase 3, which is that DOT safety project, it includes all of that DOT required documentation. They have a different, lots of different forms, lots of different documentation requirements. So that's the utility coordination forms and reporting in the DOT WAMS utility reporting system, section 106, phase 1 hazardous materials assessment, environmental report, section 4F and 6F documentation, DOT specific agency notification for Native American tribes, DNR, Army Corps of Engineers, Bureau of Aeronautics, design study report, and traffic management plan. There's also an additional public involvement element that follows the DOT requirements. And then this section will follow the DOT bidding requirements. So there'll be DOT plans that'll go through bid on the DOT system. So what this gives us for a schedule is for that phase 1, Aurora Avenue to just north of East Sherrill Parkway. We are working on a plat right now. We anticipate submitting a draft plat to city staff for internal review in the next couple days. We'll be preparing a final PS&E in April, advertising and bidding in June, and then our estimated construction start is in September of 2022. And what that'll do is that'll give us the ability to construct the East Sherrill Parkway intersection this fall. The railroad work can occur at Lacey Road over winter, and the railroad wants that work to happen during the winter because their line is shut down during winter months. So that was one of their stipulations. And then remaining work in the spring and early summer of 2023. Phase 2, which is just north of there up to West Clayton Road, we're looking at preliminary plans in June, plat in January of 2023, final PS&E in November of 2023, advertising and bidding in 2024, and estimated construction start in April of 2024. Now those dates actually align with phase 3, which is the DOT safety project. Just from an efficiency standpoint, so city staff can look at the plans for the middle section and the plans for the northern section all at the same time. The other thing that this does, as an aside, we know that there are some new funding opportunities coming up with DOT STP urban funding. They're potentially going to add a STP urban local funding. And so this schedule gives us, basically sets us up for success for a DOT project if the city were to apply for and receive DOT funding. Because time for those interim DOT submittals like environmental document, like design study report are already built into that schedule. And that is what I have. Questions?
I believe it's Quick Trip's putting in some type of big station somewhere along that area. Is that gonna coincide together, or are we gonna have a conflict of us turning into something and them turning into something later, or what?
No, the schedule actually works in conjunction with the Quick Trip timing, and we are working with the Quick Trip site designers to lay out sidewalk and grades, so we're not tearing into things that they have already installed. So.
Jim, Michael, anything?
I just have a general comment, and maybe this is more geared at Bill than our question. When does the city decide when certain things get undergrounded versus not?
We take a look at the area and what the long-term vision is. There might be some planning documents in place where we have a vision of undergrounding, overhead power lines. We look to see if there's funding available, what the cost would be, and what the benefit of that if we could do that. So in this case, there was some funding available in TID number 4 to allow for the funding of undergrounding, and we built that into the cost of this construction.
Jim,
So it
do-
really is a
oh,
case-by-case
do you have
basis.
anything?
Essentially, it is, yes.
Okay.
And specifically, there's some conflicts with the railroad equipment and the future signal there at Lacey that it would benefit from undergrounding if we go that route. So we'll
Is
make
it
sure
just
we
at
have
that-
that option.
And was the undergrounding just at that one intersection, or was it through the whole corridor?
It is essentially at that one intersection, but it kind of extends past that down Lacey and Sain in order to tie into the rest of the system.
I have a question for Andrew and Samantha. When this came before council, originally it was one project, then council broke it into two. Now I've got 3 phases. So run me through that again. Why, how'd I go from 2 to 3?
Yeah, and I guess the main, so we're calling them 3 as in terms of setting up 3 different bid packages.
Okay.
Again, construction-wise, they'll still go out in 2 times, just for simplicity and to save, the folks on Sain from 3 construction seasons. But initially, so with that updated CIP amendment, that broke it up into a second phase that had to go later because of the WSDOT design, more complicated design process, kicking out to 2024. And then basically between that, so then we had this middle chunk that could either go in our first phase or our second phase. Just from a timeline perspective, knowing that we have the T closures, we have to get that money expended within the next year, and we have the quick trip going in, we want to focus on that southern half to make sure that got done in 2022, so we can get the railroad improvements done, get everything ready to go there. And then, so then the middle half got shifted to 2024, so that, again, we don't have to go through 3 construction phases. So really, it was just, initially when we were setting this up, we were gonna go all the way up to West Clayton in our first phase. Now that middle chunk is gonna get shifted to the second phase.
Thank you, Andrew. Samantha, question for you. I understand the need for the, additional meetings with residents and, all those things that went in. I sat and listened to. Are you getting approval from our staff before you're conducting additional meetings that you're incurring? I'm hoping you're not incurring costs, just assuming that we're going to give you a change order for them, that you're getting approval for those activities from staff with the understanding, that they'll be reviewed, because I do not like, after the fact, bad news doesn't get better with time, so I always want to caution you, or going, if you have extra things, get approval before doing them. Don't just do them and think that I'm a kind-hearted chair and I'm going to approve it. Okay.
Yep. No, and definitely, and I should clarify that those public meetings were really between the stakeholder groups and city staff. Our efforts involved were in creating some additional typical sections, some additional exhibits to help facilitate those conversations. We actually were not participating, but yes, we've been really transparent all along throughout the process for what has been in scope and what has been out of scope. Just kind of seeing how things are evolving and where things are going.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I'll kind of piggyback off of that, Andrew. I worked on the Lacey Road side of the city, and know sometimes what an arduous task that can be to align different goals and different stakeholders and all the different groups and come up with a million different options. This is kind of that natural extension of asking contractors to do more research work, which obviously costs more money on that. And so, kudos to Andrew and his staff for really being on the ball and trying to manage some of that stuff before it even gets to the contractors.
Thank you, Michael. Very, very good comments. One question, and then I'll call a vote here if no one's got anything else. What's being realigned? Are we moving Sain? Are we moving East Sherrill, or maybe both of them? Can you, in my little bitty brain, I just get a feel
Yep.
for what's going on there.
Yep, Cyan Road is primarily going to stay on the same alignment, except for when we get to McCoy Road. Right now, Cyan and McCoy kind of curve into one another.
Yep.
What will happen is Cyan Road will be a straight north-south, and McCoy Road will tee into Cyan Road.
Okay.
With a signal at that intersection.
Understood. Okay,
Yep.
thank you, Yeah. All right, any other questions?
I have one. Are we gonna have a roundabout there on Cheryl and Cyan, or what? Are we putting in lights?
Traffic signals at East Sherrill,
Pardon?
traffic signals at East Sherrill,
Okay.
traffic signals at Lacey, and we are looking at a compact roundabout at Nine Bark and Central Park, Nine Bark and Central Park Place with Cyan.
Thanks.
Yep,
Any other questions? And then we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R-0122, authorizing Amendment 1 to South Cyan Road Reconstruction Design Services Contract with K&L Engineering, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Andrew. All right, next, Kim, Kim can come back online. There she is.
I'm back.
Okay, all right. Wonders of modern technology. Next, we have Resolution R-0622, accepting subdivision improvements for Phase 5 of the plat of Fahey Fields. We have a motion to approve.
I'll move approval.
Moved by Lobdell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky, I'll say. All right, when I looked at this, I counted the number of lots, and I think 15, does that sound right?
21.
21, well, it's something divisible by 3. All right. That's kind of at the south end of this. Are those, the streets along those, are those streets done already? And just the lots have just gone in recently, or the houses, or?
Yeah, the phase, there was a 5-phase construction for Fahey Fields, and this is the last phase of that. It's the southern end of the plat. And all the roads and everything in that shaded area there are part of that phase. So everything was completed over the fall, and we got our punch list items coming up in the spring for those 21 lots. And by accepting these improvements, the city will begin plowing and operating and maintaining the mains under the road.
Okay. All right, so you and your staff are satisfied that the developer has done everything to our specifications?
That's correct. The plan specifications have been met to our standards, and they have provided the lien waivers and everything that we need for acceptance.
Questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R-0622, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R-10-22, annual purchase of water treatment chemicals. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution R-10-22?
I so move we approve resolution R-10-22.
We have a second. Moved by Wilburn,
Second.
second by Wheeler. Bill, this is an annual purchase. Do we go for bids for these chemicals? Explain the process for me here, please.
Typically, we do go out for bids for different treatment materials that we have. But in this case, the company that supplies it, a local firm, is able to provide that additional delivery and at a discount to us. So this was the low bid that we had for the chlorine and fluoride for the area. And we average about $48,000 a year, 40 to 45,000 a year.
Bill, are there restrictions on the transport of these? I assume it's liquid chlorine and fluorine that come. Do they have to have things special, besides CDL and marked? I'm somewhat familiar with larger amounts of chemicals. These are not that large a quantity. When you say they provide them to us locally. I think I see some advantage to that than versus these coming down the interstate from Milwaukee or somewhere.
Sure. Yeah, the transport and of these chemicals to our facilities they have to meet all the standards with the state for hazardous material transport. And we have, our own hazardous material operating guidelines when we operate around or we are in those areas with those chemicals, so.
Other questions for Bill?
I have one question. A lot of times when we review the bills and the P cards every month, it seems like there's always items in there, the big cut ticket items were always chemicals for something. Are these different than those? Or I guess I'm confused as to why it's a contract for this and then we see them every month on the monthly invoices.
Yes, our purchasing policy requires us to set up a pre-approval for large contracts of continuously purchased items. So if we know we're going to need, 80,000 gallons of gas, we'll set up a contract with the company to do that, and then we'll just debit against that throughout the year. So what you're seeing here is the full amount for the full year, and then you'll also be approving those individual purchases that we have against that contract.
Okay, so they're basically the same ones, but it's just like a portion of that.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Good explanation. Good question, Kim. Anything else? All right, then we'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R-10-22 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Resolution R-0422, authorizing transit service agreement between the City of Madison and the City of Fitchburg. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, would you like to run down the changes in this between this current one and the one from from last year, or whatever the term was? I think you're still muted.
Sorry, muted.
All right.
So I can definitely do that. One thing I want to note, and I would recommend we postpone for 2 weeks just so we can get these new tables in there. So basically we've been operating under a 2015 transit agreement with Madison Metro that has been continually just renewed every year. This would go to a 5-year contract. And there are some term changes. That's the kind of big detailed changes that I've started to document in my memo. And that's really the meat and potatoes of kind of what this authorizing this new agreement is. Along with that, there's 3 appendices. Appendix A talks about our service hours. Appendix B talks about our rate, basically what amount we're going to pay for each of those service hours, what amount we're going to put in our operating reserve. And the third is basically what we're going to get, initially get in our operating reserve. Those first 2, A and B, because of some changes with us annexing the town of Madison's routes and a change in the financial model for Metro, those will be updating a little bit. And just not to confuse everybody about the changes and have to get an amendment and all that stuff, we're just recommending we wait until for 2 weeks. So I can update the packet and you guys can see the final appendixes.
Understood. But while we got it, does anyone have any questions here?
I guess my question is, more than anything, is are we happy with the quote price? 748,000, I'm seeing here, operating reserve balance is gonna be sitting. Are we happy with that?
So I can comment on that. So the operating reserve there, what you're seeing in Appendix C is basically what the pass-through for Federal CARES Act funding we're getting from Metro. And that's just a portion based upon, I believe, our 2019 service hours, kind of pre-pandemic service hours. So that's how they apportioned those out. We received some of those already from 2020, 2021 services through kind of all those reductions. We were able to kind of maintain our $502,000 annual budget. And so basically what you're seeing in that table is just kind of what our apportionment is and what we've been credited already. And then really table 2 or appendix 2 is really where you're seeing what our rate is being set at. Again, that's different than what our actual cost is. And the difference between those two is what ends up in our operating reserve account. If we're paying less than what our partner cost is per hour, then we'll be drawing down the operating reserve. If we're paying more, we'll be increasing it. So then I can definitely get into all those weeds, but if we're gonna wait 2 weeks, I can just do that in 2 weeks.
I just have two quick questions, and then I'll
Sure.
rate it. Was this a negotiation, or were we, I'll let you comment on it, but that one I'll just leave out there, Andrew, you don't need to answer it right now, but the American CARES Act funding, you know, as Jim and I know, you know, it's for one-time things, you don't want to use it for something that's going to have future continuing expenses. So this is just going in it's going into the reserve, is that correct? Am I understanding that?
Yep, exactly. So basically this operating reserve account, if we choose not to draw it down at all, it'll just sit there and be available for us in the future. Most, kind of how Madison Metro has been pitching this is we're able to use that to kind of soften the blow of some of these increased capital costs in the short term. And reduce some of the variability of kind of the annual operating costs over kind of our future agreement with them. So in the years past, there's been, sometimes, even the best laid plans, things change. So COVID hits, and all of a sudden you still have all the buses, still have all the same drivers, but now have many less routes, many less riders, less fares. Understanding, and obviously that's an extreme example, but there's lesser examples throughout most years that can throw off those projections. And so basically at the end of the year, you're left with a different amount than what we budgeted for. This operating reserve is really there to steady out that. So highs and lows can kind of still be absorbed by that, the operating reserve.
Thank you, Andrew. At this time,
I have
then,
one
go ahead, Kim.
question.
Go ahead.
So reading through this, it looks like Metro is doing a complete evaluation of their whole route system. Do you expect that there's going to be significant changes to the transit route system in Fitchburg as a result of that? Or don't you have any idea at this point?
It certainly is possible. I believe the latest I heard was that we're going to find that draft route network later this week. That Madison's going to post it. So I'm expecting in the next 2 weeks. So probably by the next time we meet, we'll see it. I probably won't have the finalized, or the draft estimated hours that Fitchburg has at that point. But there's certainly some changes. So, from what I've heard in discussions with Metro that, more direct routes, I don't think whole areas of the city will lose routes, but they will be shifted. Whereas maybe now they're going to a transfer point, more of our routes would go directly to the campus in downtown. So,
does Fitchburg have a representative on that group that is providing input on these routes? I mean, okay.
Yep, and I will say Metro also did a pretty good job of casting a wide net, getting a lot of survey responses from around the region. So, and we internally, Fitchburg also posted a transit survey as well, just to try to inform that ridership versus coverage debate. So that, I'm sure we'll have lots of discussions once that's released over, are these the best routes, are these best areas, and getting down to the specific service hours. This really kind of precedes that, saying we can always update with an MOU, Appendix A, and say, now the hours are going to be this versus what we used to have. But this just kind of redrafts the terms so that we have more consistency year to year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? Then I'll entertain a motion to postpone this until the February 7th meeting. Will that be ready at that time, or just indefinitely, Andrew? Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to postpone.
I so move we postpone this to February 7th.
Okay. We have a second to that motion.
Second.
Second by Granetsky. I'll call the vote. All in favor of postponing Resolution R 0422 to February 7th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that is postponed, and try to remember that for tomorrow night at council. Next, we have Resolution R 1122, approving an agreement for public improvements in Lot 2 of Certified Survey Map 7700. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Lobdell, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Wheeler. So this is property, Payne and Dolan along McKee Road, and there's a few things outstanding. Bill, would you like to offer the wording of an amendment here for this?
Yeah, I can give a quick
Yep.
overview of this and what we're doing here and why we need to have an amendment to the resolution that's attached. So Payne and Dolan, they submitted a concept development plan for their parcel. Their parcel is located where the asphalt plant is off of Cottonwood Drive, and it's to the east of Verona Road, south of Cottonwood, and it stretches all the way down to almost Lacey Road. So they own a big parcel of land back there, and what they want to do is split off a piece of land along Cottonwood Drive so that General Beverage can go ahead and put a building site there. In order to do that, whenever we do a CSM, public improvements are required along the plat. So what this means is that along the east side of the lot going into Payne and Dolan, typically we would require the road, the sewer, water, and everything be extended in there at the time of platting. But because there's a current use on a current lot, we can't defer those to a future development. And what that means is that we have to go ahead and we found a way to tie these future improvements to the existing lot where the asphalt plant is, if it were to redevelop. So if that asphalt plant were to redevelop, then they would have to put the road, the water, the sewer in. We also found out during the review of this plat that they did not connect to city sewer and water when it was available, and that is against our ordinance. So we're allowing that use to exist as long as they have a valid well operating permit on site, and they've submitted the application for that, and it will get approved. But in the event that they were to need water for other facilities, like a restroom or wastewater facilities, then they would have to extend the sewer and water, public sewer and water, into that site and make that connection at the time. So essentially, that's what the agreement is what you see before you. We had sent that to them a while back and asked for their comments back. We haven't received anything as of tonight, but we feel that we can try to get a resolution before tomorrow at the council meeting. So we're asking for approval of the agreement as the city has written it. We are in favor of how the agreement is written. And the amendment that we'd be asking for the resolution is another therefore be it resolved clause, that the final agreement is subject to approval by the city engineer and the city attorney for technical content, meaning that if, in the view of the city attorney that it's a technical content issue, we can make those changes and still approve the agreement. But if there's something substantive to the language that is being considered, we would have to come back before these bodies to get approval of the agreement again. The reason that we're trying to get this done for the development is that there's a 120-day shot clock that was initiated from the date of approval of the CDP from the Plan Commission. That is tomorrow. So If it doesn't get approved, the council, we could recommend that they extend the approval date, maybe 90, 120 days in order to be able to get the final agreement worked out, but we're hoping to get it all tied up by tomorrow night.
So I'll move amendment, offer this amendment, therefore be it resolved that this agreement is subject to approval of the city engineer and attorney for technical content. Do I have a second to that amendment?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any questions on the amendment?
It seems like this is a very one-off thing.
Yes.
All right, then we'll call the vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion? I just have one question before we vote on the amended resolution. We had quite a bit of discussion with the people from Midwest Landscaping about stormwater and on that. I think you recall that meeting. Is that resolved? I don't want to prove this and then, they're very good people, very good taxpayers, they've invested a business here, and I just want to make sure I'm not sticking them with something that is going to harm their facility moving forward.
Yeah, we are looking at their stormwater management plan that they submitted with the calculations and making sure everything doesn't back up and is improved in that area. So there may be some downstream amendments to the area that need to be made in order to get it to flow a little better. But from what I've seen from their plan, it doesn't appear that things will back up as bad as they used to or are, that the improvements that they're making will alleviate that problem.
So I'd like to hear. Okay, then,
I have a question.
go ahead, Kim.
You sent this to Payne and Dolan for review or whatever, and you have heard nothing from them, is that correct?
I reached out to them late last week to get an update, and they didn't realize that they were on the agenda for approval on Monday. So they've been working on it over the weekend to try to get it done, but we had sent it to them at least a week earlier.
I guess and this is to their benefit, isn't it? Because otherwise you could make them tie into that sanitarian water right now.
Correct.
So I guess my gut is telling me that I understand you're under the gun with this 120-day thing from Plan Commission by tomorrow, but it seems like it's all rushed and we don't really have all of the details put together. And although I know you're perfectly competent at looking at any technical expertise, it just seems like it would be easier to do the extension from the Planning Commission for another 60 days or whatever, and give this whole thing adequate time to work out the Midwest stone landscaping and to get Payne and Dolan's comments and everything else. To me, that seems like a more logical choice rather than trying to rush this, but maybe that's just my opinion.
No, Kim, I'm on the same page as you are.
Michael, Jim? Dave and Jim?
I don't have any questions.
All right. Then I'm going to call the vote, and we'll see where it falls. All in favor of amended resolution R-1122 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
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 Motion carries 3-2. Next, resolution R-115-22, amending 2022 water utility budget, large meter testing. We have a motion to approve.
So moved?
So moved by Granetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Second by Wheeler. He beat you. The Zoom is slow, Kim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I tell you, that delay hits you every time.
Okay. So as I read this bill, we're contracting the large meter testing out because according to the current rules, we would have to take the meter out, bring it back here, test it, and then return it to the customer site. And so the contracting of this testing, the contract company can do it on site, and so it's one trip. Am I close there?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Have you used this firm before?
I am not aware if we have or not.
Okay.
Does the firm have special equipment that allows them to do it on site?
Yeah, there's a few firms around the area, around the country that do on-site testing. And, they have the connections and staff capabilities of doing that. So they hook up to a large meter, they're able to flow the large flows through there and get the results right there from the meter on site. So this was the one that was able to meet our deadline or our timeline early this year so that we can get this done. And that's all I have right now.
Bill, what's the
Is
maintenance,
this-
what's the interval for
It's mostly
testing these
for
large
commercial
meters?
properties?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kim. Go ahead. I was
Is
talking
this
over the top
mostly
of
for
you.
commercial properties, the large meters?
Yes, it's mainly the large, yeah, I would say they're all commercial properties. They're anywhere larger than a 2-inch meter that would have to be tested. 2-inch meter, they're variable frequencies for the testing. I think 2-3 inches are every 4 years. 4, 6, 8 are every 2 years, or it might be every year in some cases. So it's laid out in the Public Service Commission for how often you have to test them. I don't have those intervals off the top of my head, but I know it's anywhere from 1 to 4 years that they have to be tested.
Being a new vendor, keep us posted how it's going, all right. Any other questions? I'll call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 1522 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Announcements. Our next Board of Public Works meeting is Monday, February 7th at 5:30. If you are not able to make it, let us know as soon as possible. Make sure we have a quorum. Is there anything else? I'll move for adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned.